Don't you know that you so wrong, man? You're wrong and here's why. Chris and Greg don't see eye to eye, like none of the time. Robert Covington stinks. I don't care what you think. How is LeBron James the king when he's ruining teams? You're wrong and here's why. Underdog Sports presents. You're wrong and here's why. Underdog Sports presents. Let's go, let's go, let's go.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of You're Wrong and Here's Why. I'm Chris Horwedel, joined as always by the one, the only Gregory Crone. Greg, how are you?
I am excellent, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. Thank you for asking. This week, we are going to talk about why Carmelo Anthony should be on the Olympics roster, why Dak Prescott is not worth $30 million a year, and why the MLB, playing in the Field of Dreams field, not as great as it seems. Let's start with Carmelo. Gregory, why should Carmelo Anthony be a part of the U.S. Olympic roster?
Carmelo embodies the Olympics. I mean, the guy is one of the most, if not the most successful Olympic basketball player in, I guess, U.S. men's national team history. The fact that this guy, who still, if you believe Instagram, if you believe videos that you see posted online, still has a pretty good shot. The fact that this guy can't be an asset to this team is a little bit mind-boggling to me. I mean, Carmelo's there. He's a guy who should be used for veteran leadership. He's a guy who has had the experience on the national stage before. I mean, if anything, just from that aspect of it, I mean, you're talking about a team that not exactly filled with international veterans, if I can put it that way. And I think it's kind of weird to kind of just rule him out if you're Team USA. And now, obviously, it probably comes down to, Greg Popovich's rules, because I'm sure there's something weird there. But the man's a genius. I'm sure there's something there to do with it. I'm sure it's style of play. But I just feel like Carmelo needs this shot. He needs this one last time around the ring for Carmelo.
Are you at all concerned by the fact that he's just not that good anymore? I mean, in 2017, 2018, Melo shot 40% from the field. In 2018, 2019, admittedly limited sample size in Houston, he shot 40% from the field. Turns the ball over, doesn't really play defense. What's the appeal of Carmelo Anthony at this point? Why would we go with a 35-year-old Carmelo over giving some young guy a chance to play on the international stage?
Chris, do you want to look at his NBA numbers? We're talking about international basketball. Now, obviously, this isn't the Dream Team versus Algeria. That's not the case here, but. The national games are more of a showcase in a certain thing, and Carmelo brings that name factor. Let's look at the team right now as it sort of sits there. At the 2 position, you have Joe Harris, Donovan Mitchell, and the illustrious offensive powerhouse Marcus Smart,
who got hurt and may not be participating.
Yeah, so even better. And then you're looking at small forward. You're looking at Jaylen Brown, Kyle Kuzma, Chris Middleton, and Tatum. Out of those guys, unless you're a Celtics, Lakers, Jazz, Nets, or Bucks fan, who cares about any of those guys? Honestly,
I don't know. I think Middleton is one of the NBA's really underappreciated players. I think he'll get a chance to shine on the stage with a little bit more light going his way. I think Tatum, while not a perfect player and not the sure thing superstar, many labeled him as his rookie. He's a really interesting player. He's a talented guy who's going to help this team. Kuzma is a shooter, if nothing else, and he's going to be able to put the ball in the hoop. And I think Kuzma is a good example of this. What's the difference between Carmelo and Kuzma at this point? Kuzma's just taller, younger, and more athletic, and a better shooter.
Kuzma's going to get that shine during the NBA regular season with the Lakers. With all the conversations that's going to be around that team as we move forward, Kuzma's going to get plenty of name recognition. Not that he already even hasn't. When you talk about the Lakers, even though they haven't had any actual team success in his 2 seasons, he's certainly gotten conversations about him. I just feel like there's something about Carmelo Anthony being on that Olympic team, or I guess it's not the Olympics, whatever, it's the
World
FIBA
Cup.
tournament, World Cup. There's just something about bringing him back and having him in that sort of role. And you don't need to have him for that 82-game stretch, which teams clearly don't want to do. It's pretty obvious, the fact that he can't find a landing spot really anywhere. I just think it's something that we're looking for, because I'm afraid what's going to happen is we're going to end up in a 2004 Olympics situation where we have a group of guys who some accomplish, some really not, and we're going to run into an international team that's going to be, extremely competitive. I mean, if you look at that 2004 roster, ironically, the 20-year-old Carmelo Anthony was on that team, and then you run it down, you have probably three Hall of Famers in Duncan, Allen Iverson, and a 19-year-old LeBron James. And then everybody else is just sort of there. I guess Dwayne Wade was on that team too. You kind of forget that. But you're talking about guys like Carlos Boozer, Richard Jefferson, just about to leave for China, Stephon Marbury, Sean Marion, guys who were, good in the NBA, but on the international level couldn't get it done, and we ended up walking away with a bronze medal that year. That's what this team feels like. Are we saying that, PJ Tucker and Mason Plumlee, Miles Turner, these are the guys that we want to send to play on this level? I don't get it.
I want Mason Plumlee representing me in all aspects of life, but I think the bigger issue here too is this is aren't we sending professionals? Carmelo Anthony, last time I checked, not an NBA player anymore. If Melo wants to go play some basketball, there's another league he can go play in. I think he's more suited for the Big Three than the World Cup team at this point. And by the way, if we're going to send Melo, why not just send an all-star team of the Big Three?
I mean, you could put together a solid Big Three team. Look at Joe Johnson.
We'll throw, got Rashard Lewis and Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf and DeMar Johnson. Who else? We're not having a World Cup team without Greg Oden going.
Absolutely not.
If we're sending Mason Plumlee, Brian Scalabrini's got a place to play in my world. Josh Smith is there. Will Bynum, Deion Glover, Gilbert Arenas. Would you not want to see Gilbert Arenas playing for a World Cup team? I would. Mike Bibby.
I would watch Agent Zero do literally anything. He could be cooking dinner, and I would watch him. I find him fascinating. Honestly, that actually brings together a whole nother question about the Olympics in 2 years or whatever, having 3-on-3 basketball as an actual event. That's going to be interesting. I don't know if we're actually sending professionals in that situation or what that's going to look like.
I think last I heard it was going to be amateurs, but yeah.
How have we not tried out for this yet?
I mean, from what I understand, and this is going to be a real deep dive inside baseball kind of reference, the team who wins Dan Hyman's 4th of July tournament gets an automatic invite.
Well, Chris, you're talking to a 6-time champion, so I don't know what to tell you. It looks like I'm going to be headed to, I don't know, wherever the Olympics are next time.
Well, your preparation for this is really outstanding, but yeah, I don't know, and I'm excited to see you take part in that Olympics. I believe is that in Japan in 2020?
I think it's Tokyo. Yeah, actually, you're right.
Yeah. All right. So enjoy Tokyo, and that'll be fun.
My proclivity for international flying and international travel, I should have a breeze flying all the way to Tokyo.
Look, staying on topic here. I don't know. I don't understand. I think there's something interesting and something potentially novel about saying, "Oh yeah, Carmelo can play," but I just don't see any purpose for it at the end of the day, and I don't think it's going to be the attraction past the initial stage. Like, it's fun to say, "Oh yeah, Melo's on the roster. I want to see how he does," but who cares? It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything at all. Like, if we're sending NBA players, we're sending NBA players. If we're not, then, like I said, the Big Three is a great opportunity. I'd love to see some of those guys go hoop, and I'm sure that we could put together a competitive team. I don't know if the U.S. is even the favorites, and I think part of the reason we saw some of these teams drop off, some of these guys drop out initially, is because the international teams are getting closer to the United States in terms of talent and in terms of actual, basketball ability and being a cohesive team. A lot of them are well ahead of where the United States are right now. This isn't a slam dump. It is, in fact, a slam dump is how I would categorize this team. But it's not the slam dunk that it was. Like you mentioned, that dream team, this is not going to be walking away with an average 55-point margin of victory. There's going to be tough games. The Serbia team, the Croatia, all these are very good basketball teams. I don't know. I think people are ducking it, and I think we just need to stop talking about Carmelo Anthony so he'll finally go away.
But I don't think Carmelo goes away. I think he's one of those guys that's going to continue to bring himself up, whether it's Hoodie Melo videos, whether it's him making dozens of consecutive three-pointers from all around the arc. I think that conversation's going to last for a little bit. I mean, I know Carmelo is obviously on the older side and towards the end of his probably at the end of his actual playing career. But I think in today's social media age and Twitter and things like that, those Hoodie Melo videos go up and all of a sudden Carmelo Anthony's trending all over the place. I don't think his name leaves the conversation necessarily. Obviously, it seems like Team USA's made its decision, but I don't think he leaves the NBA talking circles for at least another year or two.
Well, you can talk all you want, but nobody actually wants to add him to the roster. Even his best friend LeBron James, and the general manager of the Los Angeles Lakers opted against adding Melo.
I still think I see him potentially ending up there. If there's an injury or if there's something, I could see him making his way to that Lakers roster and potentially getting himself that late in career ring, a la, Juwan Howard.
A la Juwan Howard.
Yeah. He rode LeBron to a title.
That is exactly the reference I would have used. A la Juwan Howard. I don't even know how to argue with that. I'm awestruck. I'm impressed. And then Melo can parlay that victory into being the head coach of, say, Northwestern.
If only. I think he's Boeheim's replacement. I think that's what they're going to do. They're going to set that up.
I don't see Melo being a top-notch basketball coach.
You don't think he's going to go up and down the highways of this beautiful country, recruiting players all over the place?
Can you imagine what kind of system they would run? It's just like, if you get the ball, shoot it. Just shoot it. Get it up. The team will average 0 assists.
Hey, you don't always need assists to win.
All right. Look, I just don't see any point in this. I don't. Who are you kicking off the team to make room for Carmelo Anthony?
I mean, you don't even have to. If Marcus Smart's down and he's not playing, there's your roster spot there.
Well, that's not true. I thought they were at 15 right now and have to cut it to 12.
They might be. Yeah, what I'm seeing here is 17 down to 12. So of course, there's definitely some people that are gonna go from here. But I mean, you're looking at a guy with the amazing efficiency of Donovan Mitchell. I mean,
you're not replacing Donovan Mitchell with Carmelo Anthony. You're just not.
I'm replacing Donovan Mitchell with Carmelo Anthony. Greg Popovich might not.
I don't love Donovan Mitchell either, but he is one of the faces of this team.
Sure. Well, then let's see. What do we do with Joe Harris? Do we need a 3-point specialist in the Olympics? Is that not the Olympics, the World Cup?
Yeah, the international game is one based upon space and shooting. So, yeah, you absolutely need that guy.
Well, thank God we're bringing Jason Tatum, who only shoots 14-foot jumpers. I don't know. I don't know what we're doing.
I don't know. Jason Tatum was a 43% three-point shooter that rookie year. Mm-hmm. I hear that he's one of the best shooters in the history of basketball and probably players in the history of basketball.
I know a guy who is training for the Orlando Magic right now who might need a call.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I saw the jump shot videos, too, and I feel for every Orlando Magic fan who got excited by that.
I got like PTSD from viewing it.
Yeah, we saw that exact same video.
I mean,
that's
times. The same videos we watched every single offseason for the past few years.
And it's always weird spinning pull-up jumpers.
Yeah, and then as soon as they go up, for some reason, after like 2 hours, the videos get deleted. It's like a hype video on purpose. It's like they know what they're doing.
I think there's a very good chance they do.
Yeah.
And by the way, I want to talk about Jason Tatum because you brought him up, and I find myself in an uncomfortable position, advocating for Jason Tatum. But, when you're knocking Tatum shooting, Melo is like a career 34% three-point shooter who has been horrible of late. Tatum in his worst season, when he took a staggering 4 threes a game, still shot 37%, which is well above the league average. I think Tatum's a fine shooter. I think he was made out to be more than he is because of that rookie year playoffs.
Yeah, it very well could be the case. I'm not the biggest Jason Tatum fan, just based off of the fact that I have to listen to Celtics fans tell me about how he's the next coming of Larry Bird. Mm-hmm. Until that second year happened, that sort of derailed a little bit of that conversation.
Yeah, at power forward, I guess you have a little room. Kuzma obviously makes the team, probably the sixth man. My guess is they start Tatum and Middleton at forward, but could you add a Carmelo over Harrison Barnes? Probably.
No, you definitely could.
I don't know what the point of it is. Barnes is going to be more versatile defensively and actually try. You can't now. I'm not arguing talent on this, but you can't really replace PJ Tucker with Carmelo Anthony because we're talking about two completely different skill sets.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. It would have been a cute story, and I think it speaks to the fact that Melo just doesn't have any fans in the NBA anymore. Otherwise, people would be lining up to give him this opportunity to showcase himself and. In front of a potential NBA return. We all heard that Melo wants that farewell tour.
Yeah, and I think that, unfortunately, for him, I don't know if it's actually going to happen because of all the... I don't actually know what drama Melo has caused. Outside of basically shutting down Lynn's sanity, there's not a ton of stories of Carmelo being necessarily a bad teammate.
No, he's just a very ineffective basketball player.
Well, yeah, and it's because, and it's the problem with these guys that are the focuses for so long. It's the same issue that Iverson eventually ran into,
right?
Kobe sort of ran into.
And Iverson was smart enough to go away.
I don't know if he went away by choice. He went to Turkey, and then he spent like 6 days with the Grizzlies. He played for the Sixers for a second.
It was magical.
It was pretty awesome. I will give you that. But it's one of those things that's just a little bit. It's a little bit weird because of the style of player that they were as they get older. It doesn't age well for a lot of these guys.
No, ineffective superstars, high volume scoring superstars, does not work out when they lose their athletic ability, or the game just changes around them. And that's something we're definitely seeing with Melo. Like his game isn't played in the NBA anymore. We saw him try to go to Houston and play in that system, and it didn't work out. So.
Yeah, but I also think the Houston situation is a little bit different because you're dealing with, a ball-dominant guy in James Harden, and then also another aging superstar who still thinks he's, a top 5 point guard in the league in Chris Paul. You know what I mean? It sort of puts Melo in a bad situation when he's on the court with those guys if he's in the game there together. I mean, Melo only got really a 10-game run with Houston, and I think he kind of got the short end of the stick there just a little bit.
But don't you wonder why he only got a 10-game run? Doesn't that speak to it? That Daryl Morey, a guy willing to try anything, a guy willing to think outside the box, cut ties so quickly?
Yeah, I think it has to do with the guys on the team. That seemed to be a very snake-bitten locker room situation coming out of Houston this year. And if the trades this offseason don't tell you a lot about that, I think it kind of started at the beginning with Melo being sort of deported out of Houston. But I think it was more of the off-the-court locker room conversation amongst team leader, not accusing either Paul or Harden of that, but that's kind of what it screams to me. And then obviously, the reports of the issues between those two, which leads to Chris Paul being a Thunder. There's no way to say, like, you can't be like, oh, it leads to, somebody being a Sixer. It's like, now he's a Thunder. That doesn't make any sense. But
he is a member of the Oklahoma City Thunder organization.
Sure.
He is a Thunder basketball player.
A Thunderette?
Well, you're right, because it's singular, so
Yeah.
it's weird. It's like a White Sox. He's a White Sox.
That's a tough one.
You really need the S at the end to make that work. Regardless, we're getting off topic. We're going to take our first break. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, it's Chris, and I'm going to tell you something that you already know. The month of August is here, and while the temperatures outside continue to get hotter and hotter and hotter, the excitement around the sports world continues to rise as well. With the MLB and now NFL preseason action in full swing, football, my friends, is officially back. I'm going to tell you another thing. There's one place that has you covered, one place we trust, and that's betonline.ag. Sign up today for a free account at betonline.ag and use the promo code podcast1 for a 50% welcome bonus. How exciting is it that football is back? I don't know if you guys are watching Hard Knocks or not, but I'll tell you what. This Oakland Raiders team, soon to be Las Vegas Raiders team, the roster looks pretty good. I'm starting to get that feeling about them, and I'm thinking betonline.ag might be the place for me to put down a couple of bucks. Don't be one of those guys who just sits there and doesn't do anything. Don't sit on the sidelines for one more second. Get into the action, and don't forget to use that promo code podcast1, or you can text BETNOW, BETNOW, to 238669 to receive that 50% welcome bonus. And don't just get hung up on the football, guys. Remember, there's only 2 months left in regular season MLB action. Get in on all of it at betonline.ag, your online sportsbook experts.
All right, Gregory, we are back, and we're going to talk a little bit about Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys and why Dak is not worth the contract he's about to get. Let me just say this. With Prescott in this contract year about to be extended, we know how this works, right? We know how free agency works. It's a very opportunistic thing in terms of where you end up ranking with the highest paid players at your position. It's the reason Mike Conley was briefly the highest paid player in basketball. This is an opportunity thing. So Dak is going to get paid. He's going to be one of the top 5 paid quarterbacks in football. And the problem with that is all 5 of those guys make $30 million a year or more. At 5 is Matt Ryan making 30. At 4, Carson Wentz at 32. 3 is Aaron Rodgers, 33.5. 4 is Ben Roethlisberger at 34. And 2. And 1 is Russell Westbrook at 35. Dak just doesn't deserve to be in this group. He doesn't. And as an Eagles fan, it thrills me that they're going to spend so much of their salary cap on Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott and Amari Cooper, because I don't know, with the exception of Elliott, that any of those other guys is anything special. Prescott's one of those guys who his presence and his difference making is kind of ineffable. You don't really see it in the stat sheets. You don't see the huge numbers. You don't see the eye-popping stats. The guy's never thrown for 4,000 yards in a season. He's never thrown more than 23 touchdowns in a season. He's never been what newspapers would consider to be an elite quarterback. And he's going to get paid. And he is not worth it. And I am thrilled.
So this is the problem with the NFL, and it's not Dak's fault. The problem with the NFL and the contract situations, especially at the quarterback position, is the next guy to sign the deal is always the highest paid quarterback or the biggest contract. Mm-hmm. It's always something in that world where no matter who it is, we saw it with Matt Stafford, we saw it with Matt Ryan. Do we think Matt Stafford should be one of the top 5 highest paid quarterbacks in the league? How about Kirk Cousins? How about these guys who are relatively mediocre year in and year out, and they end up with insane contracts? Matt Stafford, has he even appeared in the playoffs? Maybe once? He definitely hasn't won a game. The Lions haven't won a playoff game since the early 90s. In the Cowboys situation, they are sort of forced here, and it's not to say that Dak doesn't necessarily deserve that, because let's be honest, quarterback's the hardest position to find in the league, and when you get one that is at least somewhat adequate, one that can actually, lead your team to victory. I mean, you're talking about back-to-back division titles. You're talking about a guy who replaced a longtime franchise quarterback who, had his own ups and downs. Dak is a mobile guy who can play in the NFL. That's obvious. He's proved it week in and week out. I mean, you're talking about 22 touchdowns to 8 interceptions last year in the regular season. I mean, sure, should he make $30 million? Probably not. But in today's NFL, that's the way it works. If you want a franchise quarterback, which I think in this case Dak Prescott is the Cowboys franchise quarterback, that's what he's going to get paid because that is the going rate for a franchise quarterback.
So you were not bashful about using the term franchise quarterback, but you sort of added the caveat, the Cowboys franchise quarterback. Do you believe Dak Prescott is a quote-unquote franchise quarterback in today's NFL?
Yes. And I'm not saying he's a top-tier franchise quarterback, but I absolutely believe that of the 30-plus teams in the NFL, that there are plenty of teams that would use him as their franchise quarterback.
Well, I think we have to set the marker for what exactly constitutes a franchise quarterback. To me, a franchise quarterback is an upper echelon, elite type player. I would say one of the top 10 players at his position in the game today. Do you believe Dak Prescott fits that criteria?
Top 10 is very hard to put him in the top 10.
So he's a good starting quarterback. He's not a franchise quarterback.
Sure, from a statistics standpoint, his stats don't jump off the page at you, but it's hard to go against a history of success. And that's when they have that team together. When you talk about Ezekiel Elliott, now you have Amari Cooper, you had Des Bryant prior, you had Jason Witten, he's coming back, you had guys like Cole Beasley who could contribute on that offense and help Dak out. I think he manages their game very well, and not to call him a game manager, because I think he's more than that to that team. But I think in this situation, he may not be what, the top 5 in passing yardage. He may not be the most efficient quarterback, but he wins games on the field.
So Josh Allen is a franchise quarterback.
That's too hard to say this early in his career. I can't say that based off of one season of production. We've seen plenty of quarterbacks come in and give us one season of production and then sort of just bottom out.
I am struggling. Let's see where your boy here. I want to see
my
where
boy.
he ranks.
All of a sudden, Dak Prescott's my boy.
Your boy Dak, where he ranks. Dak Prescott. Oh my God. So I'm gonna hurt my argument here right off the bat. But I'm on ProFootballReference.com, and they have a stat which they call approximate value. I'm not 1,000% sure what makes up this particular stat. But number 1 in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes. Number 2, Kansas City left tackle Mitchell Schwartz. Right tackle Mitchell Schwartz. So that's weird. But in terms of passing yards, Dak finishes 15th in the NFL. Mm-hmm. By the way, 1 place higher than Matt Stafford, who you took a shot at earlier, and who had probably the worst season of his career.
I mean, I'm making a comparison, though. And let's be realistic. Even when Matt Stafford had super weapons like Calvin Johnson in his prime, the Lions never won anything. They didn't go anywhere. I mean, Dak Prescott played most of the beginning of last season, the first 5 games or so, without any sort of real receiving core that wasn't Cole Beasley. Eventually, they grabbed Amari Cooper, and he took some time to assimilate into their offense. But, I mean, Dak was very limited from a weapons standpoint there. The Cowboys heavily relied on Zeke Elliott, which they will again this year once they throw a ton of money at him in the coming days. I mean, it's hard to hold all of that against I almost called him Zach. Hold that all against Dak. And he's also playing for a guy in Jason Garrett who seems to be sort of an inept head coach.
So what you're saying is this guy is not even worth knowing his name. Dak Prescott. Not even worth knowing his name. Zach, your boy Zach finished 15th in passing yards. He finished 16th in touchdowns. You can argue he was 10th in completion percentage, but that's really the best stat you can draw when it comes to Prescott. He's not impressive. 18th in QBR, 14th.
QBR is such a made-up stat, though.
Well, every stat's made up, but he is 14th in quarterback rating. He is 21st in yards per game. I just don't understand how you can justify that this is a franchise quarterback. To me, Dak Prescott's a guy who you're happy with as a starter unless somebody really good comes along. I'm not willing to say, oh, man, we have Dak Prescott. We're good for the next decade. He's a guy. He's a good guy, but he's a guy.
So let's go through the list of Cowboys quarterbacks over the last 20 years. You had the run of Tony Romo from 2006 to 2015 with some mixed-in appearances of John Kitna, Brad Johnson, guys who were backups, Kyle Orton, Brandon Weeden, Matt Castle, which somehow I don't even remember. That's what you get for working retail and missing 5 full seasons of Sunday NFL football. That there's a gap in me remembering seasons,
AKA the Matt Castle years,
pretty much. But even before that, Drew Bledsoe, Vinny Testaverde, Drew Henson, Chad Hutchinson. Did the Cowboys fans remember the years of Quincy Carter? I think it's
second round pick Quincy Carter out of Georgia.
Sure, great, and he was terrible. If we're looking at what the Cowboys and their franchise and their fans would want, if you put that versus what Dak's given them, Dak's gotten them to the playoffs 2 years in a row. I mean, they've won their division. Granted, he's had help with Elliott, and he's had help with Des Bryant and Amari Cooper, but we're talking about a guy who can competently go out there and win your team ball games. 2 division titles back to back, especially in a division like the NFC East that every year seems to be, turning over a different winner. I mean, it's almost unheard of. You're talking about a franchise really that has a legacy of being a winner, being a top tier franchise, and to have a quarterback that's bringing you some sort of success and getting you back to the playoffs with that opportunity that only 12 teams get every year. To get into the playoffs, it's hard to turn that down. And I know the price tag's high, but if you have a guy who can get you there, you have to stick with him.
I don't understand this logic. Okay, the Baltimore Ravens won the AFC North last year 10-6. Is Lamar Jackson a franchise quarterback? He
only played 8 games.
Okay, Greg. What about in Chicago in the NFC North? Mitch Trubisky led the team to a 12-4 record. Is Mitch Trubisky a franchise quarterback because he meets the criteria which you're laying out?
Chris, is Carson Wentz a franchise quarterback? He's a guy who can't stay healthy.
He was also second and runner-up for MVP. So
sure,
I
but
would
you know
use
what?
that
He ran himself into a knee injury, and his backup won a Super Bowl. How good was that team? Was it Carson Wentz, or was the rest of the team that good that a career backup and Nick Foles could win the Super Bowl with them?
There's a long history. Well, there is a history of guys like that. Trent Dilfer is a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Doug Williams. These guys aren't franchise quarterbacks. Especially Dilfer is the epitome of a game manager.
And neither is Nick Foles. That's not the argument.
You watch your goddamn mouth.
Listen, I bought a Nick Foles jersey in 2014. Believe me, I'm a big Nick Foles guy. But my point is the Eagles gave Carson Wentz a contract extension this past offseason. Where's the criticism there? We're a year removed. Do we remember how bad Carson Wentz looked in some of those games last year prior to the back injury being revealed?
Well, I mean, he was coming off of a major injury, so
sure,
I'm not super worried about that. Okay, how about this? Let's go back to that AFC North. How about all those years when the Cincinnati Bengals and Andy Dalton won the division? Is Andy Dalton a franchise quarterback?
Yes, I think he is. He just doesn't have success in the playoffs. And he should have. He absolutely should have had success in the playoffs. But Vontaze Burfict ruined that game. They're 90 seconds away from going to the next round in the playoffs, and the Steelers somehow win that game because of a roughing the passer penalty and then a forcible contact to the head penalty, personal foul.
I'm gonna give an extreme example here, but I remember the Denver Broncos winning a playoff game under the great Tim Tebow. Is Tim Tebow a franchise quarterback?
I don't think Tim Tebow is a franchise quarterback, but I still think a team should have given him some sort of opportunity. He's one of those guys that didn't necessarily fit the mold of an NFL quarterback, but the guy he won on all levels. He pulled off that game. I mean, is still one of the more ridiculous, endings of an overtime football game that I've seen. Mm-hmm. You're talking about a 80-yard slant route to the house to win it in overtime. I just don't know how. I mean, I get the teams look at numbers as far as like height, weight, throwing motions, things like that. Things that teams can build off of, that they build prototypes for these positions. And Tebow obviously never fit that, but the guy was a winner. There's
one other category that you're not mentioning that teams weigh very heavily in a backup quarterback, and that is, quite simply, is this guy going to be a distraction? And while Tim Tebow is not a negative distraction in the way a Colin Kaepernick is, he's a distraction nonetheless.
Sure,
and that's
absolutely.
the reason he is not in the NFL right now, not because of anything else. And for the record, Colin Kaepernick's still ready.
I actually want someone to give him a shot, because he as inefficient as he was with the ball in the air, Kaepernick at least provided something that we hadn't seen, and honestly was super successful at it for the majority of the beginning of his career, until he was eventually benched for Blaine Gabbert. I don't know where I don't know where he would play. I don't know who would ever take him, because there is, unfortunately, due to the way we cover sports now and the way that the media covers things, it would be such an unbelievable distraction. I don't think any team could ever bear taking that on.
I think you're 100% right. And I think it's time for us to move on. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, it's Chris Horwardell with Underdog Sports, and this one's going to be a little bit different. Usually we ask you to support the show by buying the products from our great advertisers. But right now, our mission's a little bit more important. We're going to ask you to support humanity, to support decency, and to support your fellow man. For patients with blood cancers like leukemia and lymphoma and other life-threatening diseases, it isn't a death sentence. A cure does exist. And that is where Be The Match comes in. Be The Match is a community of donors, volunteers, healthcare professionals, and researchers who deliver cures by helping patients get the life-saving marrow or umbilical cord transplant they need. Here's a couple of facts for you. Every 3 minutes, someone is diagnosed with blood cancer, and 70% of patients don't have a fully matched donor within their family. Be The Match facilitates more and more marrow and cord blood transfers every year, including nearly 6,100 in 2017 and around 86,000 transplants since 1987. You can join the Be The Match registry in person or online by going to bethematch.org. To join, people just need to meet some basic age and health guidelines and be willing to donate to a patient in need. The registration involves completing a simple health history form and giving a swab of cheek cells. It really couldn't be much easier. The reality is that only about 1 in 430 US Be The Match registry members end up donating. So it's not like you're locking yourself into something right now. All you're really doing by registering is to give someone else a fighting chance at living. I gave you a couple other facts earlier on, but maybe the most important one I'm going to give you today is this. Statistics say there's a good chance that you or someone you know has had their families impacted by cancer. I guess my intention here isn't to ask you to do this. What I really want to ask you is, why wouldn't you? What's stopping you from taking a quick test that could save someone else's life? Head over to bethematch.org for more information.
All right, Greg, we are back, and it's time for our third and final segment here. We're going to talk a little bit about Major League Baseball, and as we all know, the Major League Baseball will be playing a game just next to that the good old Field of Dreams field. You think it's a terrible idea. You don't think it's as great as it seems. Tell me why.
Here we go again. With Major League Baseball just not. They almost are like too try hard. It's the same situation. It's ironic that this is the weekend coming up with Players Weekend. We're gonna have these terrible looking jerseys with nicknames on the back, so I can call Bryce Harper Harp when I see him in South Philly. This is another stretch. It's not the same as when as when the MLB plays games in Japan. It's not the same as when the MLB plays games in Puerto Rico or Mexico. It's not the same thing. This is some sort of weird marketing gimmick for a movie that most people, the future fans of baseball, the up-and-coming people who are more interested in the NBA, NFL, soccer, things like that, based off of Twitter and watching things. No, but these kids don't know Field of Dreams. They don't care. This is at least 10 years too late, in my opinion. Field of Dreams, great movie for what it's worth. That's cool. But in this situation, this is something that is almost too try hard. It's like you're worried about about where baseball's going from a demographic standpoint and the sort of the health of the game. And it feels very it is. It's not, it doesn't feel, it is. It's very gimmicky, and it feels almost forced for Major League Baseball.
Why do you hate fun is my biggest question. And also, and I imagine Major League Baseball has figured this out, but if anyone but Kevin Costner throws out the first pitch for this game, it was a giant missed opportunity.
Bring the Ghost Dad. Bring the Ghost Dad out to throw the first pitch out.
Was the Ghost Dad Ray Liotta? No.
Yeah, it might.
No, Ray Liotta was Shoeless Joe. Shoeless Joe wasn't the dad, right?
No, he wasn't. He was his dad's teammate.
Who was the dad? All right, I'm looking at this now. Costner played Ray Kinsella. Amy Madigan and Gabby Hoffman were his wife and child, respectively. Ray Liotta was Shoeless Joe. Timothy Busfeld from West Wing was Mark, no last name given. The great James Earl Jones played Terrence Mann. Burt Lancaster played the unforgettable Moonlight Graham. Frank Whaley played Archie Graham. Dwyer Brown played John Kinsella. So I'm guessing Dwyer Brown was Kevin Costner's father.
Sure. First of all, the fact that your reference for Timothy Busfeld is The West Wing and not the unbelievable cinematic classic First Kid with Sinbad is just an affront to Sinbad and Timothy Busfeld's acting career.
Okay. I'm looking. All right, so here's a fun game we're gonna play. You're a Doug Loves Movies fan.
Sure.
Let's play Brian's IMDb game, because I forget what the actual name of it is. Can you name the 4 things that Timothy Busfeld is best known for on IMDb?
It's probably well, it's West Wing. I'm
West
sure.
Wing is one.
30-something.
There's no way you're not looking at this right now.
I swear to God, I'm not looking at it. The reason I know that is because I have watched First Kid multiple times. I have done the IMDb search for who that guy is because he's super recognizable, and I've always seen that show. I also, you ever play trivia games on? There's a website. It's called Sporkle. It's like stupid stuff.
No.
Like trivia and different categories. They have a whole TV section, and that show for some reason always comes up. I don't know why. And I also think it was featured in I Love the 80s, maybe?
Okay.
I love
You're
the 80s
saying
and
a lot
90s.
of words. I think you're hiding the fact that you're actually looking at the IMDb page.
I promise you. I am looking at NPR's article about the Yankees-White Sox Field of Dreams farm game.
You swear on the health of your child that you're
1,000 million %.
Well, when she gets lupus, we're going to look back at this moment. What else is Timothy Busfeld known for?
The only thing I could think of him being in is First Kid, which I have a feeling is not up there.
First Kid did not make it, although there was one gimme that you're missing right now.
One gimme?
Yes, and you're going to feel very stupid.
It's not Field of Dreams.
It, in fact, is Field of Dreams.
That's dumb. That's really dumb.
And,
I'm an idiot.
Since you're probably not going to get this one, Timothy Busfeld, last known for Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah, Revenge of the Nerds is before my time.
I would have gone, I believe he was in that, the follow-up, this follow-up Sorkin show, Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, along with, he was one of the main characters, along with Matthew Perry.
For some reason,
had a drug
I wanted
problem.
to say Sports Night, but I don't I don't think that's right.
I
don't think
don't
you've
know
seen
that
that.
he was in Sports Night, although they are all kind of the same.
It just feels like a show that he would be in for some reason, knowing his the Aaron Sorkin connection.
Yeah, it does not look like he was in Sports Night, but I like where this is going. And Sports Night just came up in my More Like This. How many character actors' names can you get from Sports Night?
Probably 0. It's been so long since I watched that.
Okay, one of them on Doug loves movies a lot, but all right. Okay, there's another one you should know. You should know Felicity Huffman because she's a thing.
She got me into USC.
There you go. We've got Josh Charles playing Dan Rydell, Peter Krause playing Casey McCall, Josh Molina playing Jeremy Goodwin, Sabrina Lloyd did not have much of a career, Sabrina Lloyd, and I thought she was all right, playing Natalie Hurley. I don't want to get Isaac's name wrong here, especially since he passed away a couple years. It's a French name. I don't know if it's Guillaume or something along those lines. We're going to say Robert Guillaume. Nobody else really interesting, but Sports Night, great show. Never didn't last. Also, what's his name? William H. Macy shows up at the end of season 2.
Huh. And now on to Shameless, another show that I don't watch. But
I think you're going in the right direction here.
But honestly, I feel like this is Major League Baseball's attempt to get themselves in the conversation circles, and this isn't the way to do it. Just like the nickname jerseys are not the way to do it.
What's the downside here, though? What's
I mean,
the
there
negative?
is no real downside. I just don't think anybody cares. I think people who are 35, 45 and older really care. Right? It's commemorating the 30-year anniversary of Field of Dreams. Chris, when's the last time you watched Field of Dreams?
Oh, boy. I'm willing to commit to watching it tonight.
Perfectly fine. But in reality, nobody under the age of 45 or 40 really probably cares about this. And if you do, that's great. I just don't think I don't think it's going to attract the buzz from the younger generation that baseball desperately needs. What baseball needs is a bigger presence on social media. They need their clips to be circulated like NBA clips. Mm-hmm. They need more people to be able to actually circulate those clips. It's something you hear about a lot. Major League Baseball is notorious for copyright claims and videos being removed and YouTube videos being removed. But that is how the younger generation absorbs most of their content. It's all on the internet. They're not sitting around watching I can't think of the name of their
extra innings.
Sure, exactly. Nobody's watching that but me at 12 o'clock at night catching up on the Angels-A's game. You know what I mean?
Hey, I was at an Angels game recently, and it was magical.
Seemed it.
It was just utterly magical. Plus, the Indians got a nice win that day.
Better than every Phillies game that I've been to lately.
Well, hey, Bryce shaved his beard, so everything's going to turn around. Also, why did they send Adam Hazley down? I felt like he was probably the best player on the team over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, you had to bring Jay Bruce back.
Well, I stand corrected. That is clearly the right move. In terms of this Field of Dreams thing, though, I don't think there's any downside. I just think and I know it's not practical because it's not a completely to-scale kind of thing. Would have been way cooler if they were playing on the Field of Dreams field.
Yeah, if they were playing on the actual field, not a custom-built temporary stadium, 800 yards away from it.
Yeah, through the cornfield.
Yeah. Listen, it's whatever. It's all gimmick. It's all promotion. I just don't think it's anywhere near as effective as I think they think it's going to be. Sure, is it a cool idea? Of course it is, but I just don't.
I think this is as good a place as any to end.
Hang on. I always end up talking myself into some weird road where you think that I agree with you.
I think that it's pretty much a given here where we can go back to the audio and you say, is it a cool idea? Yeah, sure it
Chris,
is.
What do you think the odds of this are? So I attended 2 Phillies games within a week.
Yeah.
Right? I attended a Saturday night game against the Atlanta Braves, and the next Sunday I attended a game against the Chicago White Sox. A great grand Sunday afternoon in the heat. I was in attendance in those 2 back-to-back games, and the other team hit a grand slam in both games. Mm-hmm. What are the odds of going the 2 consecutive games that I go to where the opposing team hits a grand slam? Like,
I'm confused.
Insanity.
Are you just griping about the Phillies at this point, or does this
Yeah.
in some way tie into Field of Dreams?
No, it's just griping about the Phillies, but also the fact that I was able to witness 2 opposing team grand slams in a span of 2 games. It's nuts.
That it is statistically, that is an anomaly if ever there was one.
I did make it on the big screen, though.
Congratulations, buddy. You're famous now.
Yeah, exactly. That's the help of having a cute daughter who was wearing Phillies gear.
It would have been weirder if she wasn't. I like the idea of dressing the kid up in opposing team's clothing every time you go to the game.
Yeah, just become a real target.
Well, and then you can just argue with her during the game about how she's not a real fan.
Yeah, yell at her. You weren't even born there. Unbelievable.
Well, look, I love this idea. And since you've already conceded victory, it seems like a good time to end this week's episode of You're Wrong and Here's Why. For
Let's go
Greg
watch
Crone,
the Eagles.
I disagree. For Greg Crone, I'm Chris Horwoodell. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you back here next week.